Okay, time for some Wi-Fi basics. Are you excited?
Yes.
Don't be. Lower your expectations. Who am I here, standing here tonight? My name is Anders. On weekdays I work with IT security at Volvo Cars. Just an average security enthusiast. I have not done any bleeding edge research. I have not been published on any walloffames, and I'm no father of any CVs, as some other speakers here tonight.
Don't be so modest.
Actually, this is me, a portrait of last week. The agenda for my quite short talk is to give just an overview of Wi-Fi 802.11. Talks about some encryption and authentication schemes. Attacks towards these schemes. What you can do to defend yourself. And then I'm going to head off to one of the rooms. We can do a short lab. I brought a small travel router, on which I'm going to try to crack the VPA2 password, and I'm also going to show you how to scan the air. Okay, let's go. So a Wi-Fi network is built up of one or more access points to which clients connect. And these access points, they continuously send beacon frames to announce themselves. That's how you, when you turn on and want to choose a network to connect to, it's your device listening to these beacon frames. However, Wi-Fi clients also continuously probe for access points, and a client can send so-called null probes out to the air, then just announcing its presence, saying, I'm here, I want to connect, who's there? And then access points respond and say, I'm here, I'm this and this SSID. However, Felix, he brought his lucky GNU, and I bring my ICA bag. So, where were we? The probes. Clients can also probe for specific access points that they know of. So, usually your device, if you haven't taught it better, it is actually sitting here probing for your home network. Trying to get in touch with it. And then they find each other, right? The access point in the client, and authentication takes place, and then something called association. And when that's done, the client and the access point are set up to start communicating. There's a concept here called basic service set, or BSS, and that is actually an access point with its connected clients. And a BSS is identified by the MAC address of the access point. And then you can have there's a concept of extended service set, and that is the total set of access points identified by the SSID or the ESSID, the Wi-Fi access point name, then broadcasting. Okay, just an overview of bands, channels, and frequencies. You have probably seen all this, and maybe all of you knows more than I do about this, but yeah, then you have to bear with me. Basically, Wi-Fi or 802.11 communicates on either 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. And B, G, and the N band can actually operates on 2.5 gigahertz. AC and N is also capable of communicating on 5 gigahertz. Yeah, I've noted down some max data transfer rates, but it's not that important here. There's actually a concept of bandwidth. So each band is divided into different channels, and the channels can be of this width. And in the regular B and G band here on the 2.5 gigahertz barrier frequency, these channels actually overlap. And the only 3 channels that do actually not overlap with each other or is channel 1, 6, and 11. So if you experience some instability with your Wi-Fi network at home, you can check what your neighbors' access points are running and try to switch to another frequency or another channel as far away from your neighbors as possible. Okay. Preparing for the lab, there's a concept of modes. Each wireless device or a wireless network card can be in one of the following modes. It can either be in station mode, which is also referred to as client mode or managed mode, which is actually what your everyday device is usually in. So it's a Wi-Fi client. You can be a master, a Wi-Fi master. It's an access point. Letting other connect. There's an ad hoc mode for creating mesh networks of Wi-Fi clients. And there's a monitor mode, which can silently listen to the Wi-Fi traffic around it. And it can listen to this traffic without associating with an access point, which is of course very interesting. However, not all combinations of hardware, driver, and operating systems support all modes. I think Mikael mentioned something related to this in his talk. Continuing on to talk about authentication and encryption on Wi-Fi. It all started out in the 90s with WEP, or wired equivalent privacy, I think. Yeah? There's actually an encryption scheme based on the RC4 stream cipher. And it was actually the case that during setup or during authentication phase to prove that the client had the pre-shared key of the access point, there was a challenge response procedure. So the access point would send a noun, a clear text noun, to the client, which it would encrypt with the key, or actually the first bytes of the key stream created by an initialization vector and the password. And then with stream ciphers, it's actually the case that you just XOR the text that you want to encrypt with the encryption byte stream However, and then on the other side, you just XOR it with the same key and you get the clear text back. And the original proposal for WEP, the original nouns was sent in clear text, so anyone listening could just fetch that clear text nouns, and then you could also listen to the client responding to the challenge, and then with an encrypted text. And of course, you could just XOR it, that encrypted text, with the original clear text that you already knew of, and then you had the key stream. And then you could start communicating with the access point encrypted. They fixed that. However, RC4 is seriously broken. I'm sure there are cryptographers in this room who can tell you a lot about the web. So what happened was the Wi-Fi Alliance started to work on an improved encryption and authentication scheme. And the final solution would then be WPA2, Wi-Fi Protected Access 2. However, which is, and WPA2, it enforces AES encryption and the proper message authentication codes. They actually had an intermediate solution called WPA that was still based on RC4, but it was encapsulated in a more secure environment. So things were fine. We had WPA2. We provided good security, and then someone came up with WPS, right? Wi-Fi protected setup, and we all went back to Stone Age because the Wi-Fi Alliance they thought this typing in WPA2 passwords, it's a bit too complex, right? We need something more simple. So they came up with the concept of PIN codes, right? So if the client knew about the PIN code and the access point knew about the PIN code, they could secretly exchange the WPA password. Or for an even simpler setup, there was a push button connect. And when this was introduced, it was actually the case that you had to have support for WPS on your device, and it had to be enabled by default for you to get a Wi-Fi Alliance certification, which many Wi-Fi providers, of course, want to have because they want to market their devices as compliant with standards. The Wi-Fi Alliance is kind of a standardization organization trying to ensure interoperability between wireless devices. On the next slide, we're going to talk about the attacks, and we're going to come back to the WPS case. So WPA, as we talked about, provides good security. It enforces AES encryption. The known attack towards this scheme is to try to brute force the password, and to do that, what you really want to do is you want to record the handshake between the client and the access point. And to do that, you can actually inject some Wi-Fi traffic into the network to de-authenticate one or more clients on the network. They will immediately try to reconnect to the access point and authenticate and associate, and then you can record that handshake. And there are tools to then try to brute force the password, which we will of course look into in the workshop. The WPS, the pin exchange, contains several deficiencies. They were disclosed by Stefan Wiebuck, I think, a German guy, a couple of years ago. And he actually discovered that the way the WPS authentication works is that you need to provide 8 digits, the PIN, but the access point will actually tell you whether if the first 4 digits are correct or not. Yeah. And then you continue on with the last 4 digits, and actually the last 8 digit is a checksum. So you had a 8-digit key or a PIN code. Actually, it was only 7 digits long, which would then provide 10 million possible combinations. But thanks to the authentication scheme, you could actually first guess the first 4, which is only a combination of 10,000, and then guess the next 3. So in total, you would only have to guess 11,000 to cover the entire key space. Of course, bad, right? Really easy to brute force. We talked a bit about it, WEP before, how it's seriously broken. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna not focus on WEP. Basically, you hardly ever see an access point offering WEP encryption today. Jesper, you're yeah.
Of course. Anders, you live in the forest.
True. I live in the forest, right? So I have very few neighbors. Lucky for them.
I don't have any neighbors on my channel.
Okay, what can you do? Our best tip is use long and strong WPA passwords. The longer, the better. Long passwords are really hard to brute force. Disable WPS on your router immediately. However, there's actually a back-off functionality in many routers nowadays. So if you try to brute force WPS, it will actually back off and say, hey, I'm not going to allow any more guesses for some time, which effectively prevents WPS brute forcing. Don't use WEP, obviously. We have seen examples of man in the middles here listening in. So if you want to stay secure, use encrypt your traffic with VPN when connecting to open access points. And be careful about auto-connect features in your devices. Sorry, I have to tell this. I attended the Next Generation Threats conference a couple of weeks ago, and I had forgot to turn off my Wi-Fi before entering there. So when I sat down, I pulled up my phone, and it said connected to ACES. And I was like, holy shit! So there was some rogue access point there. Named or impersonating an access point that I had connected to before. But I quickly turned off my Wi-Fi. So, lab time. Actually, just for today, I've bought some Wi-Fi cards. So anyone who wants to join me in the next room, trying to hack my travel router, are free to do so. You don't need to bring a laptop. You can just join me if you like to. I think that was it. Thank you.